Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Virtual Equips Community Meetup. My name is Serena, and joining us today is Tom Henriksen, who will be presenting Power Skills Bootcamp. If you have any questions for today, for Tom, as we move through today's presentation, we highly encourage you to ask them in the Ask a Questions tab or in the chat, and we will be able to address them live on site during the presentation. So feel free to ask all the questions that you have for Tom. Without any further delay, Tom, over to you.
Thank you. Appreciate the introduction. So today we're going to talk about Power Skills Bootcamp and communication for developers. So you can see my slides and we'll jump into this. So if there was a Hall of Fame for sticking your foot in your mouth, I would be in it. Since you are a developer, you know we don't communicate well. In fact, many of us don't communicate at all. In my 20+ year career as a developer, I've realized the importance of communication. Everyday communication is important to our career as coding. It took me a while to come to that realization. I'm guessing some of you might disagree. It's Friday morning and we all shuffle into the conference room. Mike, our manager, asks about the integration. Everyone sits quietly. Then I finally speak up. This pile of crap ain't gonna work. I look around and notice everyone's looking at me. Wow, I said something terrible. Then it hits me. Mike originally wrote this application, the one I just called a giant turd. The most important work in my career has been communicating, not coding. Where you might think we should focus on code, the real work is in connecting and collaborating. Much like toothpaste, bad communication can't easily be taken back. Today, we're going to learn and discuss a lot about communication. My name is Tom Henriksen. I'm a software developer with many years of experience. I've also been a project manager, scrum master, and manager of software development. I'm an entrepreneur. I've hosted online Agile and DevOps events. I've written a few books, and I blog and speak to many organizations. I currently work with Blue Cross of North Carolina and do speaking and writing for my company, Code is Easy. Here's our agenda for today. We're going to have an icebreaker. We're going to review the pre-work. No worry if you didn't finish or start, although it's quite helpful. I worked with a learning designer named Anne Remy to create it. We will talk about listening and do an activity. All this will help us become better communicators. Are there any questions?
No questions.
All right. So let's get to know each other better. Feel free to share. What is your favorite film, TV series, or book? Anybody have anyone to share?
No sharing.
All right. Anybody want to share a favorite food?
I'll go with pizza.
Pizza. Awesome. What do you like on your pizza?
I actually love margarita pizzas, so just keeping it super simple, but the traditional Italian style.
Yep. The basic. It's very good.
The basic, yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Anybody have a cure for hiccups?
Put your head upside down. Put your head upside down and hold your breath.
I had somebody the other day, they shared a similar one, but you have to drink the glass from the opposite side too, where you're upside down. I was like, wow, that's involved. I like yours better. All right. Let's review our learning objectives. First, we're going to understand basic personality profiles. So in our pre-work, we discussed the insights discovery model. This is a personality profile. It's a favorite of Anne Remy, the learning designer that helped me put this together. We're also going to do listen for a minute at work, at home, and then develop a personal connection with someone in 5 minutes or less. We'll have an activity to try this out. Hopefully, someone will step forward and we can do a role play. Now, I realize that probably a few of you are rolling your eyes. Perhaps you've been thinking, another personality profile? Sheesh. Stick around. You might learn something. First up, let's review the pre-work. So in our pre-work, we learned a lot about perception. Our perception can filter how we see the world. Others' impressions affect us and their experience too. We need to be aware of the many aspects that impact our perception. For instance, where you grew up might affect your observations, what cultural groups you're part of, perhaps even some family dynamics can alter that outlook as well. For instance, I have a few years of Java experience. I recently started learning and working on a Vue.js application. My perspective of Vue.js is filtered through my years of Java experience. As we get to know each other clearly, we can comprehend others' viewpoint. This can create more effective communication and mutual understanding. Similar to a compiler, we need to decode the messages we get. Mickey is a quality assurance team member. She asks me about my unit testing. Mickey wants to better understand what scenarios I am checking. Now, we just had a bug that caused a major outage, and we both don't want to relive that. I realize that Mickey is not second guessing my work, but making sure we're alignment on that testing. This could become a conflict if I thought differently. Think of perception as unit testing our code for a conversation. A perception checking statement is a message that you can create to check your understanding of someone's words and behavior. Perception checking has three parts: the description that provides a description of the behavior you've noticed, interpretation can provide two or possibly more interpretations of the behavior, and then clarification. So we can request clarification from the person about the behavior and your interpretation. Here's a perception checking statement I could use with Mickey, my quality assurance teammate. Mickey, I noticed you're questioning my unit testing for this new enhancement. My interpretation is that you are trying to ensure we're not going to have another bug like we had from the outage. Or perhaps you think I've not tested this change completely. Could you please clarify what you mean? This is similar to the unit test we have here on the screen. It checks the code works, just as my statement will check Mickey's perceptions. Let's review a scenario. A good friend from your workplace has not joined you for your regular lunchtime walks. During the past 3 days, even though you've left her messages to let her know you miss her and would like her to join you for a stroll, she usually responds to your message or walks with you. Recently, she hasn't responded. Let's come up with a perception checking statement for the situation. So first, we want to describe the behavior you have observed, provide at least two possible interpretations of behavior, and ask for clarification. Does anyone want to share a perception checking statement for us?
Nobody.
Nobody. Okay. So when we look at this, we want to make sure we understand that when we assume various things from on our end, when you have a perception checking statement, you want to make sure and see where the alignment is and maybe where you're off alignment. That's something that's important to really help in understanding and get alignment with both, both people or many. So for instance, like if you have a team or something. So as you saw in the pre-work, learning how to adapt and connect to others involves gaining an understanding of how others interact with the world and recognize our color energy types and behaviors. So the insights discovery model that you saw in the pre-work is based upon color energies, so that we all have within us. There's fiery red, excuse me, sunshine yellow, earth green, and cool blue. Now, none of the color energies are better than one or the other. It's just a unique combination of color energies that make you who you are. Now, we asked you to complete the Insights Discovery Assessment to help you identify your own color energies and information on different variations of your color energies. Did anyone take the assessment?
Nobody.
Nobody. Okay.
No.
So I took the assessment online. So it's funny, I took the assessment that Anne had put together in the pre work. Now, I have to admit, I'm a bit skeptic sometimes on some of these tests. So the one in Anne's was fairly simple. You essentially would click various words in a word cloud and it would describe you with the color energy. Now, as I mentioned, being a skeptic, that can't possibly be right. So sure enough, I found other insights discoveries on the web, and it was consistent. So it does work, even to my amazement. So, but it's important to understand these assessments and how they can help you understand other people. So if some of you might be familiar with for instance, a DISC assessment is a popular one as well as strength finders. And so this slide kind of helps us understand the various parts of these personality profiles on a good day and a bad day. So you can see on the left, it has the good day, right, it has the bad day. So these color energies can be a strength or a weakness, depending on, if a strength is overused, it can manifest itself and become overextended, such as a bad day. So for instance, I am a sunshine yellow and earth green. I have bits of both. So you can see on me, on a good day, I can be caring, encouraging, sharing, patient, and relaxed. On a bad day, for instance, like with the earth green, docile, bland, plodding, reliant, stubborn. So these are some things that, might show up for us when think about the slide on the, or the, excuse me, the diagram on the right, like if you're under stress. And then on the left is like, things are going okay, going well. So it's important as you think about yourself to kind of look at these, take a moment and reflect on your strengths and your weaknesses to understand how you might help you see where, you might struggle and where you might, run into some issues. And then also, as you think about this, it's important to look at this and see with some of the people you work with. For instance, I know some of the people I worked with are fiery red. So I think about how that might work with my style and might not, where we might, butt heads. Does anyone get a chance to understand this and see these assessments? Maybe see somebody you know?
Nobody.
All right. So as we think about the insights discovery and the color energies, it's helpful for you to begin to identify your color energies and how you can connect more powerfully. Recognizing the insights discovery color energies as others is only part of the battle. So then, of course, we need to think about adapting our behaviors to better meet others and their needs is key. So, for instance, you might think about a coworker. I know for the different teams I've worked on, this dynamic can come up too with a team. Wow. So you might have different team members that are more reserved, some are more outspoken. Um, Similar with a family. I have a wife and 2 kids, and I could see some of these dynamics play there as well. Once you have an understanding of the color energy attributes, you can start quickly to recognize what color energy those around you might lead with. It's very important to remember that everybody has all 4 color energies with them. Each color energy might show up differently for each individual person, depending on the situation. Never label one as only one color energy or another. There are ways to get a general sense of what a color energy a person might be leading with at any given time. When you know that, you can adapt your style in ways to help connect better to their preferences. As you recognize and understand other color energies and preferences, you can adapt how you communicate with them. Conservation, con- Conversation will be more effective, and connection will be greater, and relationships will be stronger. Let's explore some tips for communicating with each other's color energy. As we think about how self awareness is important and is ever evolving, each situation is big or small, work or otherwise, adds to our experience and reshapes and reaffirms our beliefs and behavior. Intentionally understanding others' preference allows for us greater compassion, which leads to better connection. It's not about changing who we are or what others fundamentally are. It's about being aware of how we show up and the style of those around us so we can honor, leverage, and adapt when it makes sense. In communicating expectations, needs, and more, it helps to clarify and create a common ground. Clarity in communication and effective listening are key in communicating success. We will explore more about this in an activity coming up. So next up, we are into our listening portion. So listening is a core power skill. It involves many aspects. For instance, when I try to pay attention, I understand, of course, I can get bored easily. So I need reminders. Perhaps it is putting your phone away. What is your distractor? For some, it is your phone. Trung is a coworker that I have who can talk forever. When my mind begins to wander, I try to take notes and see what he says. Does anyone have a distractor that they'd like to share?
Nobody.
All right. So it's important to show our attention. When you talk to someone, we show we're listening by making eye contact, put our phone away, look them in the eyes, perhaps nod occasionally to show understanding. Listening involves patience, openness, and the desire to understand. That is a quote from Stephen R. Covey. This can be more difficult than a phone call or Zoom meeting, where we need to listen. Closing our eyes can be helpful to cut out visual distractions. It's good to take notes. For instance, I have fidgety hands, and I always have my notebook close. A pen and paper helps me focus. Instead of taking notes on my computer, I choose the old school approach. When I use my computer, I tend to want to check my email or some notification that comes up. It's important to defer judgment. In Stephen R. Covey's classic book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, he tells us the story of riding on a New York subway. A man boards the train with his children. The kids begin to annoy the passengers. Covey finally says something to the man. The man responds by saying, "Sorry, we just came from the hospital. My wife just died." As you can imagine, Covey describes how his paradigm shifted. Essentially, we need to defer judgment until it is necessary. Many things come up that require no opinion. In Covey's case, we aren't seeing the whole picture. Developers can have unique struggles. Some of the common developer communication struggles can include group collaboration can be used to communicate the impact of change of a proposal. What are some of the pitfalls that we might encounter in a group situation?
No input from the audience.
All right. So, some of the challenges that we might encounter as a group might be, for instance, something like we're seeing here today, no interaction. I know as developers, a lot of times we can be very introverted. I am totally an introvert, but sometimes that can be difficult. For instance, I've worked with business analysts, product owners, scrum masters. I think you can get quite frustrated when the group or they have a meeting and no one shares input. So those can be some of the things that can cause issues with group collaboration, especially with developers. Individual collaboration is when we discuss a technical challenge or changes or a new process. How can this be different than the group? As we can see, think about there are unique pitfalls of, as we mentioned, the different personality styles that people have, and this can be where people might not work together well. This is you might have a developer on your team, and you might have to pair program. Maybe you don't like their style. For instance, simple thing like you're a morning person. They don't get up in early, and you want to pair, before lunch. These can be some of the pitfalls that we can have in individual collaboration. So there are other struggles we can have with email and other nonverbal methods. So we need to choose the best way to communicate. For instance, some people like to have IMs, some people like to have text messages, others might be in Slack. So do you guys share a preference of which one you select and why?
Nobody.
Oh. So it's important as we think about the message that we want to convey, what the proper mode is. So, for instance, if you have something really important and timely, you might need to pick up the phone or send a text message, where others might be easier to explain in the email. And then other things should be done, if possible, face to face. So we need to think about the subject matter, the timeliness of it, and then what are some of the good keys to being a good communication as a developer? So, for instance, where we might focus on the technical aspects, we need to make sure we have a good understanding. Another thing we can struggle with is a problem with jargon. We can have problems where we, as developers, might use certain jargon that can confuse other people that we work with. It's important too to be aligned with our stakeholders and make sure we understand where they are, what's important to them. As developers, we might think that, for instance, working on technical debt might be more important than some new feature for the business, where they might think in a similar fashion. That's where it's important to make sure you understand where they want things to go and you need to be aligned with them. So next, we're going to attempt an activity. So this is a 5-minute interview. So I'm guessing since we haven't had a lot of participation, we're not going to have anybody step forward to share with this. But this is a simple way you can know someone fairly quickly. I guess I'll ask for a volunteer.
No volunteers.
All right. So hypothetically, if we had a volunteer, we would ask them, tell me about yourself. You guys have probably heard this maybe in a job interview or when you meet somebody new. Another thing might be, what brought you here? We could ask you guys, what brought you here to this webinar? What is your biggest challenge? And then there's ways to use a few other things to help dig deeper and understand. So as you can see here, these are the 3 questions that we use. Tell me about yourself. What brought you here? What is your biggest challenge? And then we can use the 2 techniques called probing and laddering. So probing is essentially, tell me more about that. And then you can use laddering. How does that make you feel to kind of get to understand a different level of understanding? This is from a lady named Sue Baggett from Power Within Consulting. She shared this technique with me, and I think it's very helpful. So we come to this point in the presentation where we can have some quiet reflection, which I think we've had quite a bit. So does anyone want to share a key learning?
There's no, there's nobody that is asking questions or notes in the chat.
All right. With that, we will come to the end. And simply, if someone wants to connect with me, ask me questions, feel free to reach out. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tom, for your presentation today. And if there is anybody, like Tom had mentioned, that is interested in connecting with him, his information is listed here. We will also be keeping any chat notes that are in here. Feel free to drop them in there at any point in time. But yes, thank you again, Tom, for your time today. And we will be sharing this webinar for viewers later on as well. So you can find it on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much and take care.
Thank you.